you found the most in-depth coverage of the Silver and Black. The nation and the league arrive in Las Vegas in 2020. Live from the CBS Sports Radio 1140 studios, it's Silver and Black Today. Join the conversation by calling 702-889-5978. And now, here's your host, Scott Gobranson.
Welcome back. It is time, ladies and gentlemen. The preseason has come to an end. That's right. It's time to play real football. Yeah. And it's time to talk Raiders football on Las Vegas's first and only all Raiders talk show. That, of course, is the Silver and Black Today here on CBS Sports Radio, 1140 in the City of Lights, in the city of Las Vegas. The roster is mostly set. Things could still change. Yes, cuts were on Saturday, but that doesn't mean there won't be pieces moving around. So we'll talk a little bit about that. It's time for the regular season. Are the Raiders ready? They finished the preseason at 3-1, dropping their final game to Seattle on Thursday night. But what do we learn from that game? We learned a lot. It obviously informed the 53-man roster. Brandon Marshall, an early cut. Eddie Vander, as my co-host Chaz calls him, didn't.
Unfortunately.
Chaz Osborne, Silver and Black Today.
There he is. But we got lots to talk about today. And, of course, we start with also introducing you to the folks that helped me do all of this, and that includes the one, the only Mr. Kelly Kreiner, who is back after we usually say you're on assignment, Kelly, but in this case, you were not on assignment. You're on vacation, a well-deserved vacation. Tell people where you were.
Actually, I was in Denver for the weekend for the Rocky Mountain Cigar Festival. Anybody out there, if you're listening and are a cigar fan, I highly recommend this. It's a one-day event on a Saturday. If you're into craft brews, cigars, it was a really cool little event. The bag they gave you when you walk in had like 43 cigars in it, a lighter, cutter, T-shirt. The swag bag was pretty nice.
Nice.
So yeah, it's something that if you ever, if that's something you're into, it's an outdoor venue, have live music, food, drinks,
beautiful
all that
time
stuff
of
like
year
that.
right now too up there, isn't it?
It was a little hot, but not too bad.
Yeah.
Coming from here, 88 to 90 felt really nice. But yeah, it got to be
Remix.
I actually, we thought you were up there doing a little scouting on the Broncos for that opening Monday night game. I thought you were going to come back with some information for us.
They were actually out. They were on the road, or I would have done that.
Yeah.
So were the Rockies too. I couldn't even squeeze in a Rockies game.
Yeah, I'm having some audio issues with our video, so that's why I've been jumping around the studio. These guys are laughing as I brush up against them on the way back.
It's funny, Scott.
It's hysterical. So the video, we'll see what happens. Anyway, but lots to talk about today, including the game, which I want to touch on a little bit with you guys. That final game, it really was, to say anticlimactic doesn't even really, I think that's too nice. The Raiders didn't even travel half the roster. So of the 37 guys that were cut, they pretty much had those plus a few extra vets just to be there. Yeah. It wasn't exactly a fun game to watch, but I did enjoy some of the things. I thought, for example, I know that the whole Nathan Peterman thing, I thought, even though it was a mixed bag, that he did a good job towards the end again, seeing him in the late game 2-minute offense. What did you guys think?
Yeah, Peterman's been great. I saw that the first couple of days at camp, but apparently the Raiders still thought the end zone was at the 10-yard line because they just couldn't move it past that, man. I don't know what was going on there in the beginning, but, it was just basic offense, standard defense. They weren't trying to do anything crazy in the last game, just maybe get a last look at a couple guys that maybe were on the bubble.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest with you. I was watching Utah BYU because I had a lot of money on the under in that game. So the Raiders game was on the TV in the bar, and I was kind of poking my head back and forth. Did not really watch any, because to me the fourth preseason game, it's like you said, they had 50 guys on the field, or they took 50 guys.
Right.
They didn't even guys didn't even travel.
Yeah, just basic offensive and defensive sets, nothing spectacular.
Don't get hurt. Get through the day. already know who we're kind of cutting and keeping.
Right.
So you're a co-host on a Raiders show and you don't watch the game.
Utah games are more important.
I didn't watch Game 4
The Holy
of the
War
preseason.
was more important.
And I will never watch a Game 4 in the preseason because if you're playing in Game 4 of the preseason, you don't matter enough for me to pay attention to you.
You know what? That's a very valid point, and I can understand that. But I really thought that the game.
I won that bet, by the way. So
did you?
Yeah.
Nice. Oh, good. Good.
Feel
man.
free to.
Good man. Credit. Kudos. Is that good enough? Kudos good enough for you, or did you want?
He's got the money. He don't care.
Yeah,
he doesn't need your kudos.
I don't need your adulation. My mortgage is paid.
Well, I'll tell you. The thing is, we also heard this week, guys, that the collective bargaining agreement, the CBA is up after the 2020 season, after next season, so they're already negotiating. Things are good. The only hang-up that we're hearing from all the reports is around the schedule and adding games, and we talked about this several weeks ago, and I think this fourth game is a perfect example of that, which is just play 2 preseason games, extend the playoffs, like you said, Kelly, remember? Mm-hmm. And you get the extra 2 games there, right?
Well, I don't want to extend the playoff. I want to extend the regular season.
Right. So you'd rather have 2 more regular season
I would rather,
games?
if you're going to have, because you're not getting rid of games because that's revenue. Nobody's going to get rid of revenue.
That's
especially
why there's
not
preseason.
Yeah, I want to see 2 preseason games, 2 more regular season games, but an extra bye week.
Right.
So I want to extend the season 1 week. College football has that 1 week before where it's, like this is their weekend. But, you could move, if they need to move something to where you're not like walking on them by moving your schedule, you can move it a week. You can add a week to the NFL schedule. Sure. If you're adding 2 games that matter, you're adding more TV revenue, you're adding more revenue altogether. Give them another bye week if you want to do this. Because if you can name 5 people in that St. Louis Rams game, I still call them St. Louis because they don't have a stadium yet.
Oh, my goodness. Ouch. Are they playing San Diego next week?
What's that?
Are they playing San Diego next week?
They don't have a stadium either. They're still the San Diego Chargers. Until you have a home to play in, I'm calling where it's your last.
I think that's a good rule.
They're still the Oakland Raiders
I like
to
that
me.
logic.
Yeah, until you've got a place to play, you're from where you were.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, I really thought the Andrew Luck retirement might have slowed down that talk of all the expansion and everything. And then, the NFL came out with that more expansion options list this week.
It is the MFL, Money Football League.
Yeah.
So I agree with you, Kelly. I think they got to get rid of 2 preseason games, which means they got to get the revenue back. So how do they do that? The only way to do that is to have 2 more games. So to extend the season by 2 weeks, you give an extra bye. I don't know. They're going to have to figure it out, but I think that's the only hang-up. There's a lot of people talking about, even the local paper, the 2 sports that are in Las Vegas could be having labor stoppages. I thought that's ridiculous because you talk to anybody in the NFL about this current negotiation, there's always a chance of a labor stoppage, but it's pretty small. There's just so much money involved now, and they're not that far apart. This seems to be the biggest issue, and I think they'll work that out.
Yeah, they said they wanted to have it done before the season started, but everybody knew that wasn't going to happen. It's just something this big you can't throw together that quick. There's always, the minutia is really where these things get kind of caught up in, because when you're talking about fractions of a percent in a $9 billion industry, it matters.
Right.
But like you said, for the most part, the broad strokes are going to be done, and you're just tying up the loose ends. But an 18-game season to me is a big broad stroke.
No, it is. And the other issue, if you look at it from that perspective, we talked about it with a couple of former players that were in here too, which is the whole marijuana, the CBD stuff. I think they're going to come to a good resolution on that where it's legal. The issue is the federal issues we've talked about.
I was going to say, yeah, that's your issue, because you're basically telling your guys it's okay to break federal law.
That's correct. But, and Mark Bonilla, i.e. our Trump impersonator, President Trump, you floated the idea this week of legalizing marijuana.
I love marijuana, believe me. It's amazing. It's bigly. I like rolling big leagues, actually. Who doesn't want to take a puff of something and then be hungry after? I mean, come on. Come on. You know what I'm talking about, Scott. You're well aware.
I do not.
Don't lie. Don't lie.
I do not, but that's okay.
You're rolling a fatty now. Don't lie. Thank God it's Sunday.
So-
Thank God it's a holiday.
That's right. There you go.
Yeah.
But that's my point, though, is the marijuana thing looks like they're going to there. If the federal law follows suit, it would make it much easier for the NFL and the Players Association to sort of get to that. All right. Well, we are coming up on our first break. And we just got carried away with the conversation. But on today's show, we're going to talk to Jesse Reed next on the Hard Knocks episode that just passed, the next to final episode. Of course, there's only 5. We'll talk to Jesse about that. Then, bottom of the hour, Myles Simmons.
I told you were smoking.
With the Las Vegas Review-Journal. Mitchell Renz will also join us, as will former Raiders running back and, more importantly, Irish running back Greg Bell will be here as well. Don't go anywhere. You're listening to the Silver and Black today here on CBS Sports Radio 1140.
This is Silver and Black Today, live on CBS Sports Radio 1140.
All right. It sounded a little bit like the Stones, so I started doing my Mick Jagger, like chicken neck. I was keeping the guys here entertained.
Told you were on pot.
Welcome back to the Silver and Black Today here on CBS Sports Radio 1140. Hope you're having a wonderful Labor Day weekend. We're going to rewind a little bit, and we're going to talk about this week's episode of HBO's Hard Knocks. Of course, the Raiders highlighted on the popular show episode number 4 of 5. There's only 5. Of course, the final episode will come up here on Tuesday evening with the holiday. Oh, with the holidays, it moved? No, it's Tuesday. Yeah. Yes, it's still Tuesday.
Still the same.
So they're still in the same. But we're going to go back and talk a little about it. And as we do each week now, we bring in our good friend from sportsnot.com. And that, of course, is Jesse Reed. Jesse, how are you today, man?
I'm just happy to be alive, man. How are you?
I am the same. Now, Jesse, this edition of Hard Knocks, I really liked, again, because of the storytelling, but also, I mean, there was a lot of, I think, comedic relief. The remix of John Gruden saying, knock on wood if you're with me, to the hip-hop, that was all good fun. But again, we have to start where we've kind of started all along with the show, and that is with, of course, Antonio Brown. What I liked about Antonio Brown in this episode, it wasn't about the helmet stuff so much. It wasn't about the feet. It was about more of personal stories. We saw, for example, him opening fan mail. What did you think about that, especially how, in some ways, Antonio Brown has been under siege from a lot of the national media?
Yeah, you're right. He has been under siege, and it was really cool to see him opening the fan mail, and also just to see the reception he got at that high school later on in the show. And the guy has fans everywhere, obviously. He seems to really be a magnetic personality people like to be around and cheer for. It was pretty awesome seeing how much he gave back to those kids, to the high school. He signed a ton of autographs. I think it was a coach for the school was just really excited about how much he was putting out there for the kids. It's pretty cool to see the personalized stuff that he got in the mail, and somebody, some kid drew him a picture, and it was really neat to see that aspect of what a player and a superstar goes through. It's not negative. It was really positive stuff, and it reflected well on him.
Yeah, that's my point, too. I think that one of the issues I've seen with Antonio Brown, and I'm not saying, again, as I've said on the show many times and written before, he's not the most media-friendly guy. So those of us in the media, we tend to take our pound of flesh when things go wrong for those guys because they make our jobs harder sometimes. But if you're looking at it from a fan perspective, and Hard Knocks clearly is a branding vehicle for the Raiders to not only have their coach and their team and their players look good as they can. And in this case, though, I just think that it's nice with all the negativity out there to see some positive stuff on that. Now, Gruden, he's challenging his players to learn how to count from 100 to 0 by 3. What did you think of that little segment?
Well, it was really funny. That one kid he was talking to, I don't remember the name, the number or the name, but he was just like, I can't do that, and then Gruden just rattles it off, and the kid was just, in amazement, unbelievable that his coach could do that. And it was cool. It shows how he likes to use unconventional methods to kind of keep things loose And I thought that was pretty cool.
It was. The other thing, when looking at that, was, of course, we have to talk about Canada. And when they went to Winnipeg, of course, the whole debacle with the field. Although watching the show, it turns out that the debacle with the field wasn't as bad as it appears. And in fact, Gruden has some prime comments for the Green Bay Packers, their doctors, and their coaching staff. What kind of insight did we get there? I mean, it clearly shows Gruden would have played on the 100-yard field.
Yeah, it showed to me that he's such an old school guy still at heart. You know, he likes to embrace all the new school offense type stuff, and he's always looking to get more creative in that sense. But he's such an old school guy. You know, he wasn't worried about anybody getting hurt. He just, let's go play some football. Who cares about, so he was definitely ticked off about having to play on a short field. You know, he talking to the refs. He was pretty salty about it. And I just think that it shows that he's kind of an interesting crossover, old school approach, but can connect to the new school guys. That's what I took away from it.
Yeah, and for me, there's no doubt about it, and it's hard for me to understand why people don't like Gruden. But Kelly, you wanted to ask something.
Well, for me, how much of it Gruden not caring about playing on that field was the fact that he knew he wasn't playing any of his starters. No, seriously, that's what I want to know, because he knows Derek Carr, Brown, and those guys aren't going to be out there. Obviously, he doesn't want his backups or anything to get hurt.
Right.
But he also knows that if he goes out and says that he doesn't want to do this, it's 10 times a bigger issue because it's John Gruden saying it than if it's the Green Bay guys who were going to be playing their starters. So I'm wondering how much of that was factored into him saying he didn't mind.
Yep. Yeah, that's a really good point. You kind of, he did not, like you said, he didn't want anybody to get hurt. But at the same time, he wants a full evaluation on all of his guys that are right on the bubble. And he probably just didn't want to deal with the hassle of, looking back on film and it's all different. These guys are set in their ways. So that probably had a lot to do with it.
No, for sure. And of course, we saw stories that we've continued to see, because when you're documenting something like this, especially on film or video, you have to go where the story is. So we saw Darren Waller again, this time driving to a 12-step meeting, which I thought was really incredible. And then, of course, Keelan Doss, the story of the preseason. Is there anything here, too? I mean, the idea that Gruden, they humanize him at the end as well when you see his son inside the ring and inside the octagon, training for MMA. Is there anything that's going – I mean, he just seems to be so polarizing depending on where you are in the country and your view is on John Gruden coming back from being out of the game for 12 years. Is there anything that's going to change that except winning, Jesse?
Not a darn thing, to be perfectly honest. Winning cures everything. I think people got used to seeing him in the booth. They liked seeing him in the booth, and now that he's back coaching, plus, he got that huge salary, $100 million over 10 years, and I think a lot of people root for people that get big deals to fail, unfortunately. That's kind of my take. I think people like to see people fail.
Yeah, no, it's definitely true. It's unusual. I mean, and then you add in the Raider thing. Look, I think like many of the bigger brand teams, I'll say, like the Cowboys, the Giants, the Raiders, they're polarizing, right? People like them, they hate them, and so they're going to root against them. But as you head into this final episode of Hard Knocks, Jesse, what do you expect? I mean, do you expect any surprises? Do you expect anything that's going to help fans get a better sense? Or have the Raiders done such a masterful job with this in controlling it? I think more so than I've seen in any other team do in this television series.
I think the most interesting, most insightful thing will just be the cuts. That's a very humanizing element all by itself, because we've seen these players put everything they have into the team and to try to make the team, blood, sweat, and tears and all that. And then, they're going to have to document the cuts, and some of them are going to be tough. We already know, actually, that linebacker Brandon Marshall is cut. That was a surprise. So it's going to be interesting to see how Gruden, how Mike Mayock handle the players and their disappointment and just communicating this really disappointing news. And, they're probably going to focus on, Luke Wilson.
Yep.
You know, he's been a big highlight of the show, and he didn't make it, which was also really disappointing because he played so poorly in Canada, which was obviously is probably very frustrating for him personally. So it's going to be interesting to see how HBO covers the cuts and the stories behind it. That's what I'm going to be looking forward to.
No doubt, and I've enjoyed the series not just because it's the Raiders. I've enjoyed previous seasons, and I think in this case there was the drama around Antonio Brown, but seeing some of these stories. But then it's also, I think, difficult for me because there's stories I want to see that I didn't. Right, guys? We talked about Josh Jacobs, who apparently has been purposefully staying away from, although I think it's the coaching staff protecting him and keeping him out of the limelight, right?
I think it's both.
Yeah.
I think he definitely didn't want to be out there, and the coaching staff understands why.
Mm-hmm.
And because, like, he's the, as you know, Cleveland was the number 4 pick, but your focal point is going to be on Josh the first season. He's the one that's going to be out there more often. So the last thing you want to do is start that impression off before the actual season starts.
Right.
No doubt. All right, Jesse. Well, listen, man, we appreciate you being here as always. We're going to, of course, have you on next week where we'll talk about the series finale, or I should say the season finale. I don't know that it's a series finale. But dude, we appreciate you being here. Let people know how they can read you and what you're up to these days.
Well, you can find me on Twitter at JesseReed78, and I'm the managing editor at sportsnaut.com. It's like sports and the astronaut, not N-A-U-T, sportsnaut.com. We're covering the NFL a ton this year. We cover college football and Major League Baseball, all the major stuff, and give us a read. We do some really good work.
All right, Jesse, thanks, man. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks for having me on. Have a good weekend.
All right, Jesse Reed from Sportsnaut on Hard Knocks. We appreciate him being with us. Guys, hey, that show's almost over. I've enjoyed it, although I'm still mad that it was delayed in getting up this week. I don't know what the deal was. It was so odd. I think they were adding content at the last minute is what happened, but they wouldn't admit that. All right, we're going to step aside. When we come back, we're going to be talking with the Las Vegas Review-Journal's newest reporter, and that is Myles Simmons. Myles worked with the Rams. He's a Columbia grad, good journalism guy. We're going to talk to him about his impressions of this team thus far. You're listening to the Silver and Black today here on CBS Sports Radio 1140.
Hey, this is Rodney Hudson. You're listening to Silver and Black today.
Welcome back to Silver and Black today here on CBS Sports Radio 1140. We go out now on the attorney Michael Troiano newsmaker line, and we bring in Myles Simmons. He is a Raiders reporter and writer for the Las Vegas Review-Journal. Newly minted Myles Simmons comes to the RJ from the Los Angeles Rams, where he was a Rams insider, so he is no a stranger to content or the NFL. Myles, thanks for joining us here for the first time on Silver and Black today.
My pleasure. My pleasure. I am very happy to be here. I know it is definitely different covering the Raiders than the Rams, but hey, you know what? We're getting thrown into it, and we're trying to figure things out, and hopefully we'll get some good content for everybody.
That's awesome. All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about the Raiders. Of course, when you look at some of the roster cuts, the early ones, there was the only really surprise, although I'm sure for you being around the team, Brandon Marshall and kind of how that all went down didn't end like everybody thought it would. Everybody thought Brandon Marshall would be able to come home to Las Vegas. It didn't work out. But when you look at this preseason, Myles, what questions did the Raiders have going in that they've certainly answered, and what questions did they have that they still don't have the answer for?
Well, I think one of the things that they probably thought they had solved was the offensive line. And when you go through it and then Gabe Jackson gets injured early on, you don't have probably the depth, at least coming out of the gate, that you would expect to have. And you already knew you were going to not have Richie Incognito for the first 2 games, but you did go out and you signed Trent Brown, right? And then, of course, a couple days ago, they extend Rodney Hudson into, the years that they're going to be in Las Vegas. So I think that you probably thought you had something solved there, but now that you're going into the regular season and you're not going to have Jackson, you don't necessarily have the depth at the interior spots that you maybe thought that you were going to have. I think maybe another question that you had was who's going to be the backup quarterback. I know we all heard about Nathan Peterman and how much John Gruden really, really liked him. But I think when it comes down to it, Mike Glennon is probably the one that you would expect to have that role. So those are two questions I think that you probably had. And I think also maybe just the rookies, how would they perform, especially your 3 first-round picks. I think they saw exactly what they needed to see out of those guys. We talk about Josh Jacobs. He had a great first drive, but the only drive that the starting offense had there in Arizona. I think Cleveland Farrell, he played a little bit against the Rams and played more against the Arizona Cardinals. You saw what you needed to see out of him. He's got that high motor. He can go after guys. He almost chased down Kyler Murray in the backfield. And with Jonathan Abram, too, I think you see his tenacity, you see his nastiness, how he wants to come up and hit people in the box. So I guess those are things that you really wanted to see, and now you've been able to kind of see those things.
Yeah, I think with the Brandon Marshall, that's kind of a perfect example of, the coaches seeing things in camp that we don't get to see in the games. And a lot of the media, they only get a certain amount of time on the field with the players. So now with Brandon Marshall being cut, I'm starting to hear some Jadeveon Clowney rumors. Is that something you think could be possible?
Well, wouldn't it be funny, right, if the Raiders traded Khalil Mack last year, and then in order to get another edge rusher, what do? They go and they trade for Jadeveon Clowney. I don't necessarily see that happening, especially because if Clowney is an outside linebacker, he's more of just a pure edge rusher, and he is a great run defender. But that outside linebacker spot that they've got here in the 4-3 is a little bit different. It's more somebody that you want to be able to run around and just kind of make tackles. And unfortunately, it really just didn't work out for Brandon Marshall. Now that is, I think you asked me a question that they still don't have answered. I think that is something that you still may see some more movement in the next couple of days. I mean, even during the practice week, because guys get on the practice squads, they get off the practice squads, and there could be more movement at that outside linebacker position for sure.
Yeah, Myles, that's what we're talking to Myles Simmons from the Las Vegas Review-Journal. He covers the Raiders for the paper. And Myles, the one thing I had to ask you, in looking at that defense, there's been a lot of talk about how the defense has performed better, that we've seen, for example, some of the things that we've seen up front. Anthony Rush is surprised, and some of the other guys there. But the linebacking core, defensive backs, there still seems to be those lingering questions. Of course, we didn't see a lot of Vontaze Burfict because of the way the preseason rolls out. You're not going to roll out your veterans out there. But how big of a problem could it still be for the Raiders when you look at still even people like Garyon Conley, who everyone roots for, wants him to do well, but still hasn't proven out yet at that number 1 draft pick kind of level. Going into the season, how concerned would you be if you're that coaching staff?
Well, I think that you've seen some encouraging signs. I think, you just talked about Devontae. Well, because he was in Cincinnati when he was coming up. I mean, when Burfict as an undrafted free agent in 2012, coach, and then when Mike Zimmer went to be head coach of the Vikings, then Gunther became defensive coordinator. So there is a real understanding of Paul Gunther's defense and what he wants to do and what he wants to get accomplished out of that middle linebacker position that you have Burfict there. And I don't think you can overrate that because it really becomes your defensive quarterback. He is a signal caller. He knows exactly what is supposed to happen and where guys are supposed to be lined up on each and every play. And because of that, you're going to have better communication. And that can help guys up front. It can help guys in the back end and certainly help the linebacking core as well. So should there be concern on the defense? Absolutely. I think based on what you saw last year, they left the most amount of points. They get 13 sacks. Just plainly, it wasn't a good defense last year. So they have a lot to prove coming out into this 2019 season, but I think that they have done a lot of things in order to improve it. Is it going to be all of a sudden an elite defense? That would surprise me.
Yeah. Again, talking to Myles Simmons from the Las Vegas Review-Journal. And Myles, when we look at this team, one of the issues that we heard a lot about last year, not from anybody really on the team, but from those of us that cover the team, was this idea that it was rough inside, that John Gruden may have lost touch with players and all this. Now, we've seen a different side of that with Hard Knocks and seen the relationship and the camaraderie that happens between the team and the coach. But you being around them, what's your impression overall of that team unity and chemistry as Gruden enters year 2?
Yeah, I haven't necessarily got much of a sense for that. And I mean, as we mentioned off the top, it's not like I've been around here for all that long. But talking to a couple players individually, it seems like they really like Gruden. I can certainly say that about safety Jonathan Abram. I mean, I think he told me that he has a real good connection with John Gruden and that he feels like he's being pushed in the right way. I think Nathan Peterman has said similar things as well. So I think that, to the extent that we can actually tell, there are really positive things that are going on with Gruden, with that team in terms of their chemistry and their development. And, of course, when you have a new coach and a new coaching staff, there are going to be some guys that are just going to miss the way things used to be. And I think that happens in kind of any industry, right? It could be, somebody hires a new CEO and then all the other employees are like, man, I really miss the old CEO, right? So maybe it's time for me to go somewhere else. So I think that this kind of turnover always happens when there's a new coaching staff. But I think at the same time, you're getting guys now that Gruden really likes and Mike Mayock really likes. Mike Mayock has done a good job of kind of implementing John Gruden's vision in order to make sure that going forward, this is the type of team that's going to gel really, really well with Gruden's coaching style.
That makes sense. And then what about that relationship between Carr and Gruden? I think that it's been overblown. I mean, we still see folks at the national level that are saying, no, he's not Gruden's guy. He's going to be gone before they get to Vegas because they got that out in the contract. From being around them and the sense that you get from other guys in the locker room, how is that relationship forging ahead, and how is it different from year 1?
I think it's fine. I think anytime you're around somebody more, especially as a coach, and you've got the play caller and the quarterback relationship is so essential to anything that is ever going to have success, right? I mean, think about Sean Payton and Drew Brees down in New Orleans and their connection. Sean Payton probably doesn't really need to call plays into the headset very often because Drew Brees probably has a great idea now that they've been together for so long what he would call anyway. And I was starting to see that same sort of thing with Jared Goff and Sean McVay down in Los Angeles before coming up here. So when you have now year 2 with the coach and the quarterback, this is where you start to really see the quarterback become more of a coach on the field because he understands the intent of what the play is better than he might have just before, right? When you hear this play call in your head, it's sometimes, all right, what is the play? Now, what do I have to do to be successful? Now, when you're in year 2, it's, okay, I hear this play, and I understand that the defense might be coming out in a certain look, and that's why we want to attack it this way. When you have that sort of shift in mindset from a quarterback, it makes a huge difference. And so because of that, I think that Gruden and Carr, they're growing together. I think they're doing well in their relationship together. I tend to agree with you that some of that stuff may be a little bit overblown. However, if Carr goes out and he stinks up the joint, yeah, they do have that out in the contract. And so I think everything has to be there. Everything has to keep progressing with Derek Carr. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But right now, as things stand heading into the 2019 season, it seems like Derek Carr is on the right track to make sure that he is the franchise quarterback for the Raiders as they move to Vegas.
All right, Myles Simmons from the Las Vegas Review-Journal. Myles, thanks for being with us. Make sure you follow Myles at Myles A. Simmons on Twitter. Read his stuff in the RJ. And we'll have you on again real soon, my man. I appreciate the time today.
My pleasure, guys.
All right. That was Myles Simmons from the RJ. Why do I want to say Simons? What is my deal with that?
Arizona basketball
That's
player.
what it is. That's what I'm trying to. Myles Simmons from the RJ. Good guy, good writer. They're lucky to have him over there. All right. We're going to step aside, and when we come back, we're going to be joined by Mitchell Renz. Mitchell is the senior writer and on-air analyst for Chat Sports. We're going to ask him, what is the ceiling for this 2019 Raiders team? We'll also talk to him a little bit about the offensive line. He, too, thought that it wasn't very good this past weekend and that they have trouble as well. Even though I'm a big Lester Cotton guy, I think he made the team. Woo! The defenses look better, but what else? We're going to talk to Mitchell Renz about that next, along with myself Chaz Osborne and Kelly Kreiner. You're listening to the Silver and Black today here on CBS Sports Radio 1140.
Found the most in-depth coverage of the Silver and Black. This is Silver and Black Today, live on CBS Sports Radio 1140. Here's your host, Scott Gobranson.
Welcome back. As the show rolls on, we're going to go out on the attorney Michael Troiano Newsmaker line, where we find Mitch Renz. Mitch is the senior writer and on-air analyst for Chat Sports. He covers all sports with a focus on the NFL and fantasy football. He is also a former baseball player at Centenary College. And I know that, Mitch, because I checked out your Instagram and you got those cool old school unis on, man. Welcome to the show.
Yeah.
Hey, awesome. Thanks for inviting me. I'm excited. Also, if you guys are interested in checking out my show, it's called The Raiders Report.
Yes.
It's pretty popular on Facebook and YouTube. Check it out, youtube.com/Raiders Report. But, yeah, man, I'm an old school baseball dude. Played a little bit of baseball in Germany as well. It was an awesome opportunity. A pitcher. The reason why I had to pitch, though, like I was a contact hitter that struck out a lot in high school, literally a shortstop, and I got DH for by my pitcher. So, yeah, we're gonna start.
Too funny, but yes, yeah, your YouTube channel is a popular Raiders channel. Check it out. He does great content there, including interactive stuff, which is great. You're polling people. You're doing all kinds of stuff. All right, let's talk about the 2019 Raiders, Mitch. We look at this team. Certainly, there's no question they've improved. But in your mind, looking now that we've finished the preseason, we got rosters, what do you think? What is the ceiling for this 2019 Raiders club?
I think when you look at the actual ceiling for the Raiders, I think there's two parts of it. If you look at it just by wins and losses, you're actually probably going to be pretty disappointed. And why I say that, the Raiders have by far the hardest schedule in the NFL, and I don't really care what anybody says. I mean, the fact that we're going to open up against the Broncos Chiefs, okay, then we don't have another home game until week 9 against the Lions, right? And then it is just an absolute gauntlet. I mean, you're going against the Vikings, a playoff caliber team. The Colts, thank God Andrew Luck decided to ruin my one weekend and retire. Week 5 against the Bears, and you got week 6, the bye week. The Packers, the Texans, all playoff caliber teams. And for me, personally, I don't think Gabe Jackson's going to be back until week 7. So the fact that we're not going to have one of our best linemen those first 7 weeks is going to hurt. But for me, I think if this team can turn it around, be around that 9 wins, I think that is a huge, huge improvement. And hopefully that's enough to make it to the playoffs.
Well, and then we've talked about that a lot here, Mitch, about the schedule. I really felt, the Vegas line, we live by that here. The over-under on wins was 6.5. And I bet the under way back because I said, you know what, 6 wins is about right because of the schedule. If not for the schedule, I would be disappointed if they weren't an 8-win team. I think they have the ability to do that, but that schedule is so brutal. And then you had the question marks, one of which I know you commented after the team's last game on Thursday, which was around the offensive line. Now, I thought Lester Cotton and Andre James did a good job, and those guys were surprises for me through the course of the preseason. But this offensive line, if it doesn't hold up, this thing could go south fast, couldn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you look at Derek Carr's best years, right? So, I mean, Derek Carr in 2016, the Raiders gave up 18 sacks. Or in 2015, they gave up 18 sacks. In 2017, they gave up, I think, like 27 sacks. Last year, gave up 52 sacks, 5th most sacks in the entire NFL. Now, I rip Tom Cable more than any single person does in the show. And heck, if you watch my show, as soon as I mention Tom Cable, we get like 1,000 comments that say "fire Tom Cable." But like, he's actually looked pretty good this preseason, right? I mean, the offensive line has played pretty well, despite the fact that Incognito is going to be suspended those first 2 games. The Gabe Jackson injury. I've been a Lester Cotton fan. However, after this past performance, week 4, he's definitely a roster bubble player for me. I'm kind of biting my words a little bit. I said on my show that if Lester Cotton, Keelan Dawson, all these other UDFAs don't make the team, that I would do Edward 40 hands. And if you don't know what Edward 40 hands, Google it. But I'm starting to get a little bit worried that I'm going to have to do that on my show.
Oh my gosh, that might be a time when you need to charge for your content. But when we look at this team too, the defense, it's looked better. Of course, one of the early cuts was Brandon Marshall. I'm still unfazed and just unconvinced. And I know, Kelly, we've talked about this with the linebacking core and the defensive backs. Now, they've gotten obviously better with Joyner, and you see Keyshawn Nixon come out of nowhere and do a great job. But that linebacker core, if that's not good, if they can't help put pressure and contain, this could be a long year there too. Even if the defense is quote unquote improved, what do you look at that and look on that side of the ball and look at the defensive backs and look at the linebackers? Who's going to step up there, and how are you feeling going into the season with the unit you have?
So for me, actually, the biggest part of that defense might not be the player that shows up the most on the stat sheet, but to me, it's Vontaze Burfict. And one of the reasons why I'm really excited about what Vontaze can do is, I mean, if you look at all the different moving parts that the Raiders have had the last 4 years, different coaches, different coordinators, I mean, it's a lot. And now if you can add a player like Vontaze Burfict, who's a veteran player, but the biggest reason, he's a player captain. One of the reasons why I projected him to be a captain this year, and he's played with Paul Gunther with the Cincinnati Bengals. He knows that defense inside and out. And when you can have an old veteran player on a defense that has as many new guys as they have between in the draft, they're trying to get all these players to buy into the system. And then, yeah, you mentioned LaMarcus Joyner, who I think is their Swiss Army knife on that defense. But if you could tell me which player I think might be the most important that a lot of people don't talk about, I think it's Vontaze Burfict, because he knows the Paul Gunther system better than anyone. Cleveland Ferrell multiple times has said this offseason, wow, Vontaze is like the guy everyone goes to. And he might not fill up the stat sheet, but you know what? That's okay, because if he's the captain out there and the quarterback, if you will, that's a very important role that the Raiders have really had since Khalil Mack's been gone. And didn't really want to say Khalil Mack on this show, but hey, you know, sometimes that's what you're going to have to do.
Hey, Mitchell, it's Kelly. I've got a big problem with the linebacking core, and every time I bring it up, everybody reminds me that the Gunther system doesn't accentuate the linebacker play. But when you look at the lack of pass rush they've had, and you see some little bits and parts getting better, but still the big question is, where's the pass rush coming in this defense? Are they going to have to try and blitz some more? Are they going to have to, try to scheme in some pressure? Or do they think that the guys they have on the defensive line are going to be able to contribute?
I think they're definitely confident in the defensive line, right? I mean, think about how much money the Raiders had this offseason. Think about all the big-name defensive linemen that were out there. If you're telling me right now, John Gruden, Mike Mayock, they're going out there, they're seeing names like Frank Clark. You go out there, I mean, Jadeveon Clowney, he's still floating out there. But to me, I think they're very confident in Cleveland Ferrell, who is a player who I think could easily have 4 to 5 sacks this year. Let's not overblow it. Khalil only had 4 in his first year. And you look at, Arden Key. Arden Key had 11 quarterback hits last year. He led the Raiders. And he's looked very, very good this preseason. But, there's been reports out there that the Raiders could go with something like a NASCAR package. I think you've kind of seen it a little bit this preseason, where they're going to use their defensive ends, they're going to use the depth that they've had, and they're going to really try to get after the quarterback. And I think in today's NFL, you don't really need to have that Von Miller, right, or Khalil Mack, because unfortunately those guys don't grow on trees. If they did, well, shit, I'd be a great defensive coordinator. I think when you look at this Raiders team, Markel Lee needs to step up in the passing game. Sure, he had 68 tackles last year, but needs to be able to improve in the passing game. And you see a lot of these other players, and I think one of the reasons why Brandon Marshall got cut, because he just couldn't get it done in the passing game. Right. If you want to go up against Phillip Rivers, Patrick Mahomes, and today's NFL, you better be able to cover the pass.
All right. Yeah, no, Mitch, I agree with you. And listen, man, we appreciate you being on, and we will get you on during the season. Make sure you check out Raiders Report on YouTube. And Mitch, what's your Twitter handle again for everybody?
You guys can follow me everywhere, YouTube or on Instagram, Twitter. It's at Mitchell Renz 365. You're telling people they should pay for my content. My Venmo is also at Mitchell Renz 365.
Nice.
Don't be afraid to hit that up. But, hey, anytime we might be able to link up and get you guys on the Raiders Report. And if I'm ever in Vegas, I got the first round. So if you guys
I love that, man. We're also going to be in London, so if you make it over there, we'll definitely connect. All right, Mitch Renz, senior writer, on-air analyst for Chat Sports, Raiders Report on YouTube, of course. Thanks for joining us. Okay, we're going to step aside. When we come back, Greg Bell, former Raiders and Rams and Bills, and, of course, Irish Notre Dame running back is going to join us. We're going to talk to him a little bit about Andrew Luck, about retiring, the pains and the mental, all the stuff involved with being an NFL player, and how that, because the Andrew Luck story might be a week old now, but the reality is it's reverberating through the league, and so we want to talk a little bit about that. And we're also going to talk to Greg about his involvement with something we're involved in, which is the Ickey Woods Celebrity Golf Tournament. Next weekend, we're going to be live at Bally High Golf Course, where we'll be talking to Ickey. We'll see Greg and a bunch of these other guys as well, so we're excited about that. Top of the hour sports update coming up for you so that you're not out of the loop. And when we come back, Greg Bell. You're listening to Silver and Black Today on CBS Sports Radio, 1140.
You found the most in-depth coverage of the Silver and Black. The nation and the league arrive in Las Vegas in 2020. Live from the CBS Sports Radio 1140 studios, it's Silver and Black Today. Join the conversation by calling 702-889-5978. And now, here's your host, Scott Gobranson.
Welcome back to Silver and Black Today here on CBS Sports Radio. We go back out on the attorney Michael Troiano newsmaker line, and we bring in Greg Bell. Greg Bell, of course, played in the NFL for the Buffalo Bills, the Los Angeles Rams, and the Los Angeles Raiders from 1984 to 1990. Also played college football with my team, of course, the Irish. The University of Notre Dame was drafted by the Bills in the first round in 1984 after attending South High School in Columbus, Ohio. Pro Bowl back in 1984. Of course, he was the comeback player of the year in 1988, two-time NFL rushing touchdown leader. And I think as great as that career was and as great as his accomplishments on the field, he also does a lot off the field. His Athletes for Life Foundation, after-school programs, life skills camps, you name it. He's also going to be part of the Ickey Woods Celebrity Golf Tournament here that we're going to be broadcasting live at next week out at Bally High. Greg, thanks for joining us here on Silver and Black Today.
Hey, Scott, how you doing, man?
I'm doing really well. It's great
I hear a second voice. Who's the second voice?
Oh, we got two people. We got Chaz Osborne, who sits next to me. He's my co-host.
Hey, Greg.
Okay.
And we got
how we doing that?
And we got Kelly Kreiner, who's on the other side, and he's a Michigan fan, so we try to keep him out of it.
Oh, yeah, we have to.
Turn his microphone off every now and then.
I'll sit over here quietly for the next few minutes. After what they did to Michigan last year, I'm not saying a word.
That's right. That's right. That's what the Irish.
That doesn't even tell you what we're going to do to them this year.
I love it. I love it, man. That's awesome. All right. Well, I want to talk some general football with you first, Greg, before we talk about, of course, the work you do off the field and then Ickey's golf tournament next weekend. But when you look at what the story of the week sort of has been, not cuts in the NFL, but it's been Andrew Luck stepping aside, losing the desire to play due to health, due to mental health. And you were the comeback player of the year in '88. You fought injury, and being a running back at the time you were, the type of running back you were, you had to sustain a lot of abuse and a lot of injury. Talk a little bit about that. I think he's getting unfairly criticized by people. The timing is never good.
Well,
but
first of all, he can take the criticism. I mean, let's remember who we're talking about. Andrew's a strong guy. He's not really caring too much about that. He's caring about the number one issue, meaning his health. We all see what's going on in the National Football League. I mean, heck, half of them, they don't even hit anymore in training camp. It's more of a walkthrough. Mm-hmm. So they're truly concerned about the health, the number of hits, things of that nature. I can tell you this, and it's a story I tell a lot of people. When I ended my career with the Green Bay Packers in their training camp. I started the day in ice. I finished the day in ice.
Yep.
When I was done, I needed to have back surgery for two herniated discs that I played with for about 3 years. And, you can shoot them up only so much. But it got to the point where I would call home and I'd be crying because my back was killing me, but I love this game so much. I don't want to walk away from it. It was like, I remember when I came into the game, Sherman White, who was a great outside linebacker, defensive end for the Seattle Seahawks, but he was at the Buffalo Bills at that time. And Shu said, if they're carrying you in on a high note, let them carry you out on a low note. Yeah. Basically, it's like, don't walk away from the money.
Right.
So, of course, our money then isn't like the money that they have guaranteed today. And so, he's in a good financial position. Andrew's a really intelligent person. If there's one kid that I'm going to listen to, if he tells me he can't fight the pain anymore, I'm going to take him on his word on that, because this kid he's fought a lot of pain. He's played with a lot of pain, not only in the pros but in college. He was one of those diehard guys when he was at Stanford. He very seldomly came off the field. So I understand what he's talking about. And then you turn around, it's almost kind of, like faux pas that the same day he announces that, Gronk announces that he's going to work with a CBD.
Yeah.
He's trying to tell you the pain that he's been going through. And a lot of guys don't understand it. You're a Notre Dame fan, so you'll understand it when I say this. My big brother was Dave Dorson.
Oh, yeah.
And when Dave took his life, it was an indication of how much the pain could be that he couldn't bear anymore. So, and Dave was a strong person. I mean, it wasn't like him to do something of that abnormal. And, with time going on, Mel Owens, who was one of my teammates who became the workers' compensation lawyer for the NFL, Mel told me, he said, Greg, I was representing Dave at the time, and he was going through a lot of pain. So, you gotta take a man on his word sometimes. I guess, he's not running for a presidential position, so I'm going to take Andrew on his word on this one. And, I tell him now, he's strong shoulders, man. He'll let the criticism come. But it's hard for any guy, and I'm telling you, for him to make that decision, it killed him inside, because I know how much he loves the game of football.
Yeah, and again, we're talking to Greg Bell, former Raiders, Rams, Bills, running back, of course, Notre Dame, University of Notre Dame. And Greg, that's the one thing I said after it happened, is for someone to walk away at a young age with that much money on the table, and it's not about money, it's about the health, but your desire and your love for the game, I had nothing but respect for him. So it's hard for me to see people burning jerseys. And I know fans today, they just do things to get a reaction, and we kind of let it go.
What? For your listeners to kind of take a mental picture of what he just did, think of your life's dream. And I tell kids this every time I do speaking to kids. I tell them, you can pinch me, because I really had never woken up from the dream that I had some 30, 40 years ago. My dream was to play in the National Football League. And to walk away the way he's walking away from it, that could be a nightmare. That's not a dream anymore.
Right.
So just think of the dream that you've had your entire life, and now you're living it. And then you have to be forced to walk away from it. That ain't something that's, this is the most precious thing you have in life. That dream, I tell kids, if you can dream and achieve the dreams that you have in life, more power to you. And Andrew was, he was at the highest level. We're not talking about a guy who was the 32nd best quarterback in the league. He's in the top 5.
Right.
And to walk away from it took a lot of courage.
Yeah, Greg, that's a great message. That's what you want to tell the kids. Just follow your dreams. Do what you want to do. Be happy. If you've got a job that something you want to do, you'll never work a day in your life, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's switch gears.
Never work a day in your life.
Let's talk about that 1990 season. I know Raider fans look back fondly on that season. I mean, you got some guys there: Marcus Allen, Bo Jackson, Howie, Tim Brown, Willie Galt, and Greg Townsend and Steve Wisniewski were the Pro Bowlers on that team.
Yeah.
So you're talking about an incredible team, an incredible season. Talk about that season a little bit, and then talk about how special your teammates were.
Yeah, I mean, that was a special group of guys. I mean, when we're in Napa every summer with the team, it's a great bond that you can't replace the camaraderie that team had. We had a lot of different minds. It was a typical Raider team, if you think about it, man. I mean, you get guys from veterans from other teams. You bring in a different mentality. At that time, I was coming from a Ram team that had been to the NFC Championship the year before, and they kind of tore down that team and let Gary Jeter go, this guy go. About 8 guys from that Rams team that played the 49ers for the championship were gone. And, one of my close friends who will also be over next week, me and Ron still talk almost daily now. Ron Brown and I, we kind of looked at each other and said, let's make a move. And neither one of us wanted to leave the city of Los Angeles. That was our home. That was where we wanted to make home for the rest of our life. And so when Al called, it was just great to go over there. And then to get around guys like Greg Townsend and Howie. You probably don't remember, but I'm trying to think who came from the 49ers that year. I mean, Ronnie came the next year, in '91, Ronnie Lott and Roger. But Ricky Ellis.
Ricky Ellis.
Ricky Ellis. Ricky came over, and he had this is a guy who won the Super Bowls, so he brought that kind of mentality that Howie and them. Him and Marcus and those guys remembered that 81 team that had won it in the Coliseum. So here, this mentality changed, and we did some great things that season. And the one thing I tell people, I take my hat off to the Buffalo Bills. They were prepared. They were ready to play that night. 5 out of 5 times that game probably would have been a heck of a lot different. But we came in, a cold day. California guys.
That was just an ambush, man. That was unbelievable.
You went back to Buffalo, and it was a nightmare. Bless Bo's heart. That was the year he got hurt. But being around a guy like Bo, who had phenomenal ability that you just couldn't. You couldn't put your finger on it, and to be the size, the speed, and Bo had a winning mentality. He didn't come in with anything less. So it was a great group of guys to be around. To this day, we see each other over the course of the year at tournaments, at grudge matches, we get back to Raider games. It's a fun time, and nothing beats that camaraderie.
Yeah, we had Ron Brown in studio a few weeks ago, and it was just great talking with him. It's going to be great catching up with you guys at the golf tournament next week.
Yeah, let's talk about that, Greg. Let's talk about the golf tournament coming out for Ickey Woods. We had Ickey and Ron together, actually, so you can imagine it was hard to get any work done. But we had those guys in the studio. Talk about the importance of that work that NFL players like yourself, alumni, do off the field, because this tournament, 11 people die every day from asthma. So you guys are coming out and doing this. Talk about the importance of that and what you guys do and what you're able to use your careers and your fame to come out and raise money for a good cause.
Right. Just like you said, I work with another gentleman who, of course, you're going to love this, because this is the brotherhood of going to Notre Dame. Jerome Bettis' the Bus Stop Care Foundation is also about asthma. Yeah. So we just did a tournament back in May with Jerome that he does for his foundation. And those are staggering numbers when you really think about it, because that's something, that's almost kind of like polio and, all the other things that we've come up with fabulous cures for. And they're still killing people. Yeah. And so to hear that 11 kids are dying from something that, probably I can't even tell you that. My daughter, we were at a barbecue one time, and she was about 7 years old. We walked by a barbecue pit, and she fell down and started convulsing, couldn't breathe. Oh. Ambulance came, took her to the hospital. They tell her she's got asthma.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
And she grew out of it. But that's the people tend to think that the smallest things can trigger this. We didn't even know. We never knew she had it. So just the research, the awareness, everything that the foundation is looking to provide, and going out and doing these services is just something that's, for Greg Bell, this is that was God's mission for me. I tell people all the time, I'm a mentor. I've been a mentor since I was 17 years old, and it's just that was the mission that God, I think, put in his heart, that was going to be my plan. I thought it was to be a football player, and it's amazing. After 9 years, you leave your dream and you don't know what's next, but that came into my heart. So being a charitable person has been a part of my heart for a long time.
No, that's awesome, and it's so very important. Again, we're talking to Greg Bell, former Raiders running back, Rams, Bills, and Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Now, Greg, I know they're going to be doing the screenings on Saturday out at Sunset Park, and then the tournament, which we will be at live from on Sunday. Do you regularly golf? Obviously, you do it in these tournaments. Yeah. How is that? Are you able to take that competition, that competitive atmosphere, that mindset you had on the football field and use it on the golf course?
Against guys like Ron, yeah, I can. I can play better than Ron. I probably can play better than Ickey too. No, I get out and golf pretty. I get to a lot of tournaments. I can hit the ball pretty decent, but I tell you what, I'm like any other pro that goes out there, because I've seen Tiger put one in the water. I've seen him throw his way out. I've seen Mickelson hit a ball and it goes up into the grandstand. So I look at it and say, I'm just as good as those guys. I'm just not as accurate as those guys.
Is your game closer to Charles Barkley's game or closer to Tiger Woods' game?
Oh, no. I got a better game than that. If Charles was here, I'd tell him, We could put money down on that.
Yeah.
Me and Charles could go out and play any day.
Oh, that's too funny. And Greg, I know you, like you said, you do a lot of work with youth in the Los Angeles area and around the country. Talk a little bit about what you're up to and how people can keep track of that and help you out.
Well, you can definitely keep track by going to athletesforlife.org, and that's, of course, athletesforlife.org. So that's our website. I started Athletes for Life, believe it or not, 30 years ago.
Wow.
Due to the death of my dear friend Stacey Turan, who, of course, was an all-star strong safety for the Raiders. And he died in a drunk driving accident. At that time, I was Nancy Reagan's spokesperson in California for Just Say No, and I had spent 4 years of my career in Buffalo for Governor Cuomo speaking on anti-drunk driving and drug prevention. So it was something that was dear and close to me. So we started Athletes for Life then, and it's evolved into an educational mentoring program where we do after-school education. We have a life skill camp that's probably the largest free camp in the country. And you know what's funny? We've had kids from Las Vegas come over for the camp.
Oh,
so
nice.
It's one of those programs that we try and provide services, and the services aren't just about football. People tend to see it and they think it's a football camp, but that's just one element of what we call structured physical training. But we have educational trainings. We've got anti-bullying, financial literacy, coding. We got a great coding program looking at doing partnerships. We got a group from Belize that we do it with.
Wow.
They've got a camp in Belize. We're thinking of trying to put an exchange program together with that one. So it's one of those things it's more than just about football and sports. It's about the life skills that you learn from those games. I tell people all the time, football is probably one of the greatest life skill teachers a kid will ever have. And so I guess that's why, we got, what's the female kicker who I saw kick the 55-yarder?
Oh, yeah.
I guess she wants to get into football because she needs those life skills too.
Yeah, exactly. No, and that's amazing. Your organization, Athletes for Life, the Athletes for Life Foundation, like you said, one of the largest free camps of its kind in the United States. And this is what's remarkable, and I just want to applaud you on this, because taking these kids that are at risk or low-income students, and 94% of your young people that go through this program end up going to college.
Yeah, we get a lot of, and so the viewers don't get kind of blown away by that number, because 300 is a huge number, and you think 90%. When we say the 90%, generally we're talking about our senior classes each year.
Sure.
Those are the senior classes. And, of course, when you get to your senior level, the numbers tend to tie down a little bit. So what we do is when you see that these kids are going on to colleges, I want to point out something. Hopefully you caught that Arizona State game last night, right?
Oh, yeah. My daughter was a Sun Devil.
Well, then great, because Jaden Daniels started in our program when he was in the 5th grade.
Wow, that's awesome. That's very cool.
Those are the kind of stories, Alexander Madison, who's with the Minnesota Vikings, Kenny Clark, who's with the Green Bay Packers, Jimmy Smith. These are kids, that I met them when they were in the 5th, 6th, and some of them maybe 7th grade. And we've been blessed that we've had some really great athletes come through, but it's the kids who go on, the females. I've got a female. We're doing our 30th anniversary golf tournament in November 11th and 12th at Temecula.
Ah.
And I've got a young lady, Michelle. I'm sure you remember Corey Benjamin, who was drafted by the Lakers.
Of course.
Michelle used to be his wife. And it's just so funny a story. When she was in high school, she was the first student to sign up for my Athletes for Life program at Upland High School. That was 30 years ago. So that to kind of tell you the kind of the warmness you get from it, because now she's an educator.
Ah.
She teaches in the Victor Valley School District. And so, and when you see her and she tells you, some of the messages that you delivered back 30 years ago, she's delivering now.
That's awesome.
And then to see her, she's got 2 young sons who now attend our camp. It's
comes full circle, man.
It warms you. It warms your heart, because a lot of times people say you do things and you don't look for the rewards. And I don't look to see any rewards. I don't look to see any broadcast about what we're doing off the field. But it's great to me when I get to meet and see where those kids have gone 30 years later.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's just fantastic work. Thanks for all that you do. And I know we're looking forward to seeing you out here on this coming Sunday when you have the Ickey Woods Golf Tournament. So, Greg Bell, former Raiders running back, thanks for joining us today, man. We'll see you out at the course.
See you next week.
Yeah, I'll see you, and you'll see a lot of me. I've got a place up in Red Rock, so it's been up there. Yeah, I'm headed up there for a few years, so it's a rental, but now we're going to be me putting myself in. I'll be there this weekend, and I'm looking forward to the Raiders coming to Las Vegas.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. That stadium's going to be nice. It'll be great to have you around, and we can rub into certain Michigan fans when the Irish take them down. All right, Greg Bell, thanks very much for joining us. All right, we're going to step aside. We'll be back here on the Silver and Black today on CBS Sports Radio, 1140.
Hi, this is Steve Wisniewski, and you're listening to the Silver and Black today.
All right, welcome back, Silver and Black today. Thanks to Greg Bell. Great interview and just amazing guy off the field, what he's done since his career's ended. He also did it during his career, but just great stuff he's doing with the kids. And, of course, you're going to be able to come out and meet Greg Bell, as well as Larry Johnson, former UNLV star, Ickey Woods. I mean, there's the names. You have to check it out. We will put up the flyer for the Ickey Woods
go to the website.
Yep, go to the website. You can check it out and come out and see. We're going to be there live from 8 to 10 a.m. next week. So this show, we're doing it live from the golf course.
Yep.
We're going to try to keep Chaz in the radio booth, not out on the course.
Yeah.
Kelly, do you golf? You golf?
No.
No, okay, that's fine.
I don't have the patience for it.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Well, we want to touch real quickly as we now are set with the Raiders and at least until the waiver wire calms down over the first week of practice.
Yeah.
I want to get your sense. We talked earlier with some of our guests about the record for the Raiders. I'm still holding at 6 games. I still think 6 games. Could they sneak 2 depending on what happens with their teams? If Pat Mahomes gets injured, guess what? The Chiefs suddenly aren't the Chiefs, and could they win one of those games? Yes. So we can't account for that. But for me, I'm sticking where I was 2 months ago and where I put my money down is under 6.5 wins. Kelly, do you see any scenario where this team could go on a run and win 9 or 10 games?
I mean, like realistically, no, I don't. And it all comes down to the schedule. The schedule's brutal, you know, and I don't care. Yeah, you get the bye week after the London trip, but yet you've already had 4 away games before that. You're coming back. You know, the schedule's brutal because almost every team you're playing is a, playoff contender.
Right.
It's just, I think, and you say it all the time, they're going to be a better team than last year, but their record is not going to show it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's, you mentioned it earlier, the Indianapolis game's kind of a little bit of a coin flip now.
Right.
I like Brissett a little more than most people. I would still probably consider that a loss on the road, but I mean, it's one that could flip. So you could get in that kind of 6-7 range with that game or another game like that. But as far as like being a 500 or better or playoff team, I just don't see it.
Right. At a glance, it looks like 6-10. For me, when I look at it, there's a lot of 50-50 games, and certainly that Colts game has kind of turned into a 50-50 game now. A lot of it, for me, really, the first game against the Broncos, that's a 50-50 game. If they win that game, I think they can win 8. If they lose that, it's probably around 6. The schedule doesn't bother me that much. I know I'm going to go back to when they moved to Los Angeles that first year, and the team, they were all still living in Oakland. They were flying in for those home games, and the team went 8-1 in a strike-shortened season. So when you've got a good team, good players, you can still win no matter what the situation. So I'm not going to give the schedule as an excuse, but I will say we're relying heavily on a lot of first and second-year guys, and so that will play into the fact that there's going to be a lot of ups and downs this season. So as you look at it, if we're 2-2 after those first 4 games, then we've got a realistic shot. And you never know, you could catch fire, but then you start looking at these other 50-50 games, in New York against the Jets, and then we've got the Titans and Jaguars at home. So, maybe those, it feels like, those are strong teams, but something could happen. And like I said on the last show, at the end of the season, if the Broncos are, flailing or whatever, and they get Drew Lock in there, we can win that last game against the Broncos. And
I had a friend tell me and say, "Oh, you're full of it. You're just making excuses for the Raiders because of the schedule." You never hear Tom Brady complain about the schedule, to which I say
Tom Brady's never had 7 straight road games.
Right, and Tom Brady plays in the AFC East, the worst division in all of football.
You get 6 wins every year, right?
So again, I'm not saying that they can't finish 8-8. I'm just saying, again, even if you don't gamble, the odds makers and all that they factor into what they factor into making a line tells me that, and I stick with it. And if they win 6 games, I think it's a productive, good step season to where next year they could win 8 or 9 games if things go well and they continue to add to the roster, and people like Cleveland Ferrell and people like Arden Key and Derek Carr all do well, so that when they get to Las Vegas, they are a playoff contention team.
Yeah. No, I'm thinking more like 10 or 12 when they get to Las Vegas. That's where it should be. That's what your mindset should be.
Well, it should, yeah.
This is going to be a learning curve kind of season with the schedule, young players, everything coming together. So next year should really be like a huge step forward.
It should be, but I look at that schedule, and it's just attrition. It's the travel. If you're not someone who travels outside of, let's say, vacation travel or a little bit of business travel here and there, when you travel a ton, I've done it professionally, and I don't play football. It wears on you, and when you spend close to 8 weeks on the road, even when you have to fly all the way back home, you're not feeling comfortable because you don't get to stay there.
You
You're
don't
back
get
out.
decompress. You don't get to start over. It's just go, go, go. It's crazy.
As a reminder, the 3 of us will be in London. Hey now.
That's a professional segue.
Yeah, knock on wood if you're with me.
So we're going to be in London. You can join us. Make sure you go to london2019.silverandblacktoday.com. We will be broadcasting from the game from Tottenham. We will do it before the game. Our show happens to run right up until kickoff, so stay tuned for details on that. But you can come with us. Make sure you do it. If you don't come with us, just make sure you listen to us. But it's going to be fun, guys. I'm looking forward to that.
Yep.
And riding on a double-decker bus with Chaz, because apparently... No?
What? It's taking us to the closest pub.
We're going to have fun. All right, we're going to step aside. We're going to... Oh, there he is. That's Chaz on London time. That's right.
Yep.
We're going to step aside and pay some bills. When we come back, we're going to have Kelly's Corner. Yes, Kelly is back. He's itching to do his corner, or he's itching for some other reason that we're unaware of. But neither way, he's going to be back, and he's going to do that. You're listening to Silver and Black today on CBS Sports Radio 1140.
This is Silver and Black Today, live on CBS Sports Radio 1140.
Welcome back to CBS Sports Radio 1140 and the Silver and Black Today. Las Vegas is only all Raiders show. That's right. Some others claim they cover the Raiders. That's all we do. We don't just cover them.
Raiders all the time.
We live it, and we appreciate you being with us as always. All right, one of the favorite parts of the show for at least one person in the world. And then, I'm just kidding. Everybody loves this.
Is that Chaz? Because I can take the segment off.
That's my favorite part of the show.
My goodness. I am, of course, speaking of Kelly's Corner, it's the time when Kelly opines about something. It could be anything. Oh. Kelly sounds so different this morning. All right, Kelly, take it away.
Well, now I'm just going to do dead air for the next 10 or 12 minutes. See how much you guys like that.
It's like performance art.
Keep the jokes coming. I have 2 things I'm going to do right now. One of them just going to do real quick about the field in Canada. If the NFL is going to continue to steal games from teams and move them other places just for a money grab, take a little bit of time to make sure that the field is actually playable. The fact that they had 2 Super Bowl contenders try to play them in a crappy field in Mexico last year, that after a soccer game and after a concert is embarrassing enough. But now the fact that you take a game, put it in Canada, and then like, oh wait, yeah, they have a big hole in the middle of the end zone or the front of the end zone because their field's bigger, and you didn't think about that for a second, makes me realize that the NFL doesn't give 2 craps about the teams as long as they can grab some cash while they're at it.
Yeah.
All right. More importantly, I want to talk about the Andrew Luck situation.
Knock on wood if you're with me.
As I know fan is short for fanatic, and the fact that, I used to be a season ticket holder for the Colts back in the day, the fact that fans were booing him disgusted me. Like, I get you're going to have a small group of people that are going to do that. You get in an environment like that, one person, it kind of grows a little bit.
Right.
It wasn't a ton of fans booing, but I just don't, people don't realize we put him on these pedestals like there's some like gladiators and gods or something. We forget that they are people and that this is a job.
Right.
If you had a job that was for 4 years, you were in constant pain, and you no longer had to work, would you keep doing it?
No.
The answer's no. Everybody wants to make sports out to be this glamorous. For most of these guys, it's a job. Yes, they have the love for the sport. Yes, they want to. They want to win champions. But it comes down to every day. It's what's more important to me, playing football or just the value of my life. Do I want to be able to walk with my kids when I'm in my 50s?
Right.
I met Earl Campbell at a autograph signing years ago, and that guy was a monster. He was a tank.
He was a beast.
He could barely walk to get to his table, and then I didn't want to shake his hands because his fingers were just kind of disfigured and stuff from getting tackled and everything like that. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, for some guys like that, they're fine with that. And they are like, you know what? I wouldn't trade this for a second.
Mm-hmm.
Mark Schlereth talks about how he had 32 knee surgeries, wouldn't change a thing.
Right.
That's awesome for him. But for some people, this isn't what they want to go through. And for Andrew Luck, he doesn't have to go through this. He made the toughest choice of all, which is to leave early, which is way harder than to leave late. Because the longer you stick around, the easier it is for the game to get rid of you, not for you to get rid of the game.
Yep.
So for anybody out there that thinks he's weak or thinks that this is like the Doug Gottlieb one killed me when he came out and said that quitting football because rehab was too hard is the most millennial thing ever.
Right.
To me, just shows a lack of just an utter stupidity. And I'm pretty sure that he says this knowing, because he's at the point now to where he's on Fox, he's got his thing to where it's about just getting out there. It's the hot take culture is what his job is. He doesn't have to believe what he has to say. It just has to be out there. Because if he's that dumb, he is that dumb. He went to Notre Dame. You remember that? You're a Notre Dame guy.
Yeah, but he didn't stay there.
Yeah. Why didn't he stay there?
The credit card fiasco.
So apparently the only thing harder than rehab is getting credit. So Doug Gottlieb stole someone's credit cards. And yes, I stole that off Twitter because somebody said, getting credit's too hard, so you steal credit cards is the most Gottlieb thing ever.
Yeah, I saw that.
I love it. You know what? It's great. But Doug knows better than that. But he's making people are talking about him. Watch the show.
And here's the bottom line. There are things that pop into all of our heads around situations. With the toxic environment around politics right now, I see people say things sometimes, and something pops in my head. And you know what I do? Every once in a while, I am putting it on Twitter, and then I stop. And I said, you know what?
You Herm Edwards it.
Yes. Stop and think for a second.
Don't hit send.
Don't hit send, right? And so, to me, that's what we see here. Now, Doug Gottlieb might have thought that. I went through his head. I might have thoughts like that on certain things as well. But you just sometimes, it's okay. Because you have this phone at your fingertips and you have a platform as a radio host, don't think that people think your opinion is more important than others, or don't think that you're right about everything, because you're not. And you know what? I might have a different view of that. And so just walk away from the keyboard. Don't think it's always about you or it's about your opinions or what you think of the world. Just let it go. Have something nice to say or don't say it at all. Now, can you say the timing of Andrew Luck's retirement was awful for the Colts? Absolutely. But you know what? If I went in and any of us went in and quit our job with very little notice, that would suck for our employers too. There's no way around it, but it's his quality of life. And he actually, in some ways, to me, did his team a favor. Yes, it would have been nice before the draft and all that, blah, blah, blah. But if he didn't know at that point, he didn't know. Yep. Give him a break. I'm just tired of the attack culture over everything. You say something, and if people don't like what you say, suddenly you're a bad person, you're a liar, or you're an idiot.
Yeah, I disagree with you saying that it was bad timing. It was the best timing, because the second he realizes he can't put his heart into this,
correct,
he's screwing his team over because he's not going to be able to do that.
Right.
It's not the most convenient for the Colts.
Yeah.
That's what
but this was never this was never something he was like, oh, you know what, I'm going to screw these guys over, blah, blah, blah. But the second you realize you can't do something to the fullest, if you don't let it go, you're not only cheating yourself, you're cheating everybody else that's playing for you. Because if you're not there 100%, don't be there. And that's what he thought. He thought he was coming back from the ankle injury. He thought he was going to be able to, play. And the second he realized this isn't getting better, I can't do this anymore, is when he shut it down. And that is the best time to do it for everybody involved.
It's a great argument. I also think that because of these platforms, and you know what? If you come at me with your hate for this, saying this, so be it. These platforms give fans much more of a say and involvement in things than they need. Okay, because your player, the burning of jerseys. Like, I get when Kevin Durant left Oklahoma City.
More LeBron James. You can't really
or LeBron James, like with the whole build-up. Right. I get it, okay, and I understand that you're upset. You're like, forget this guy. He's dead to me from a player perspective because I'm a fan of this team.
Right.
But when Andrew Luck steps aside, and this is a guy at the top. Look at the year he had last year. Coming back. He proved everybody. He had nothing left to prove in my book, right? Because you come back from that injury and have that kind of season, amazing.
Yep.
So you come back. If you're a Colts fan, you should say, you know what? I'm depressed. I'm sad. It sucks. But that's my guy. Thank you for what you did give us.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
It's hard to do that in the moment, right?
Yeah. Oh, and that's the thing in the moment. It's like that. But Colts fans got spoiled because they went from Manning to Luck.
Exactly.
Ask a Miami Dolphins fan what it would be like. The Raiders.
Raider fans for the last 15 years. It's been tough.
It's they've fell from one generational quarterback and fell into another one. So they've been spoiled and haven't had to deal with.
Right.
Like I said, the Miami things. Dan Marino's one of, if not the best quarterbacks of all time.
Absolutely.
The best quarterback Miami's had since then is Chad Pennington.
Ouch.
That's That's
not Geno Smith.
No, and we won't even bring up the Scott Mitchell experiment.
Oh, the Scott. Yeah,
dude. Talk about stealing money. Jesus.
Holy moly, the Jets.
Fitzmagic been named the starter down there
in Miami.
Yeah, that's because you don't get Rosen killed before week 6.
Exactly.
That makes sense. I'd go with a proven veteran just to start it off and let Rosen get eased into the whole thing. I know there was the argument back and forth. Well, you got to start the rookie and start. You don't
when your offensive line's that bad.
No.
Well, but just to finish on your point, Kelly, because I think it's an important one, and maybe because I've got the gray hair and the years on a lot of people out there. I love sports. I've been a fan and continue to be a fan of sports, and it's great that people have more ways to interact with athletes and teams and all this stuff these days. But people's lives are more important. They just are.
That's right.
And so you need to step aside for a second and ask yourself, if you're that invested in sports and in your team, I'm not saying you don't show up, Raider Nation, and tailgate your butts off and cheer your team off and get upset when they don't do well and get happy when they. I'm not saying that you don't do that. But when you start making it personal and you start taking shots and you've never walked in these people's shoes before, you need to address whether or not you got your life's priorities straight. And I think the Andrew Luck situation brought that up. I'm not a Colts fan. I never have been, other than I love their uniforms. And Andrew Luck has always been a kid and a player that I really respect.
Yeah.
Other than that, though, just ask yourself, if you're that invested and that angry because somebody's doing what's best for their life, it's time to readdress your own situation.
And my favorite argument's the average person that's like, I would never leave that money out there. I would never. Yeah, because you don't have money.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
If you have money, you don't need more money. You can. He's made enough.
Made $97 million.
And he's got other things he can do.
Right. He's an architect.
It's not like he's going to be like, oh, man, what am I going to do now? Well, you can live off that $100 million you have, and you're going to be fine.
Yeah.
If you have no money, or if you're like me, I wouldn't leave $57 million. But if I had $57 million, I'd leave.
It's not like he's me. He went to UNLV. He went to Stanford. Right?
He got an education.
He went to Stanford. He's an architect. His family is full of architects. The guy's going to have a good career. And you know what? He's going to be able to walk. He's going to be able to have fun with his kids.
Yeah. And he talked earlier about he was in a dark place. It was affecting his marriage.
Yeah,
everybody out there knows if you're married, if you and the wife aren't getting along, that should be your number one priority.
No, and that's exactly true. Family's always number one, and good for Andrew Luck. Now, I was concerned because the Captain Andrew Luck Twitter handle, which is one of the best things ever on Twitter, it's been so good, it has now switched over to Derek Carr.
Yeah, it's
Whoa.
not as good.
You know what? It's not as good because it just started. I think it's the same guy, is it not?
Oh, I didn't.
You don't think so?
I didn't think it was.
I think it is, but we'll see how that works out. So we'll have to keep a close eye on that one. But Kelly, that's a great segment. You know, I agree with everything that you said, and really when it comes to players' health, and we heard Greg Bell earlier in the show talk about players' health and talk about Andrew Luck. I thought what he said was very important too, and he said, "Don't worry about the criticism because Andrew can handle it." And he is. Right. He's true. It just makes guys like me angry because I'm like, dude, give the guy a break, right? So we'll see. But great segment there.
Hey, Kelly, should I go on Twitter and yell at him for using the word segment? I don't know.
Yes.
First it's the pot, now it's segment.
I can't believe I used that. Anyway, we are. I love when Mark's on the board.
Yep. Knock on wood if you're with me.
All right, there we go. But we have just a little bit of left. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll close out the show. We'll tell you a little bit about next week's show. It's going to be live on location. And then, of course, we'll be in London.
Yep.
Cheerio. What else?
It'll be a good time. There's going to be a lot of waiver wire action today, right?
Bonjour.
No, wrong.
If you listen to a certain sports podcast, you get that joke.
Okay. Thanks, Kelly. Thanks for letting us in on the joke. All right. You've been listening to Silver and Black today. We'll be back right after this.
The only way to take Silver and Black today with you is with a radio.com app. Download it today and search CBS Sports Radio 1140 in Las Vegas and listen to us anytime, anywhere.
Welcome back to Silver and Black today here on CBS Sports Radio. Also, apologies, no video today because Kelly pulled out some plugs or something and we can't figure it out. No, it was actually Chaz. No, it was actually me. We had issues today, so sorry for not bringing video to you, but we brought all this other great content within these parts of the show that we will not call the S word. Anyway, welcome back.
We're going to close. Never mind.
Schmuck. Wrong. We are back, and we're going to close out the show. And we just want to remind you that next week, we're going to be live on location from Bali High Golf Club for the Ickey Woods Celebrity Golf Tournament benefiting the Javonte Woods Foundation. We've been selling tickets, sweepstakes tickets. You can still buy those for $20 a piece. We will
show the camera.
Yeah, show the camera. Yeah, what camera? We will show you the tickets. We will post this on our Twitter timeline several times in the next few days. We only have a few days left. So if you want one of these tickets, your chance to win up to $17,000 for the season. You can also win $400 weekly for top scores. You can also win $50 a week for lowest score. Yep. So lots of great stuff. But you can buy this. It's only $20. You can buy it online. You get 3 teams randomly each week. But anyway, the proceeds from this we are donating to the Javonte Woods Foundation. So make sure you jump in on that. It's a fun deal. Also, London. We'll have more details about London. We got about 36 days until we fly over the pond and get there and bring this motley crew to the London area. And hopefully we will all get back. Chaz likes those cavity searches, so we got to be careful when we go through.
What? Show took a turn today.
Oh, my goodness. But guys, we have obviously waiver wire stuff coming up. We'll see a lot of changes over the week, but Sunday's a big day for that. We haven't seen any names yet that say, Raiders need to jump on it. But do you expect them, Kelly and Chaz, do you expect the Raiders to maybe be active? I mean, it all depends on the guys out there, right?
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. It's like I don't think there's going to be some big surprise name that's going to wind up to where it's like, ooh, that guy. That's what we need.
Yeah.
Got to have him. Yeah. You know, there's always there's always going to be cap casualties after the 53. There's always going to be something else come up. You know, but unless there's like, you know, that linebacker, gotta have him.
Yep.
You know,
we'll see at the end of the day. It's going to be a fun day watching everything unfold.
It will be, and it's always a fun day when I get to spend this time, quality time with you two gentlemen, if I can use that term. Yes. So thank you guys for being here. As always, we love talking Raiders football. The season is here, so next week from Bali High, we will be talking about the Raiders' first game. Of course, they play on Monday night against Denver. So we'll have that day. The league will start on Sunday, but the Raiders fans will be more excited about Monday, so we'll talk about that. We'll preview the game. We'll have guests on as well from Denver to preview the Broncos for us as well. It's going to be a big game up in Oakland against the Broncos to start the season with this roster. Antonio Brown's first game, Terrell Williams' first game, Josh Jacobs' first game. But again, caution. Don't get too excited and don't get too down if things don't go well, right?
Man, it's the Broncos. You're going to beat the Broncos at home.
Got to beat the Broncos at home.
I think so.
That's what we talk about.
Monday Night Football, you need. This is the thing. We were talking about the wins. You need this win. You need to start off. If you lose a Monday night at home, that's just a bad sign for the season.
Exactly.
Because you've got Kansas City coming in next. Then you've got a 2-month road trip.
Right. I mean, those 50-50 games I was talking about with the season, you always lean heavily on the home team in a 50-50 game. So that's why you give it to the Jets, kind of, because we're going to New York. But we're playing at home. Monday night, we used to shine. Let's start shining again. Let's turn this thing.
Flacco.
You can beat Joe Flacco.
You can beat Joe Flacco, man.
Yes, it's going to be a big game. We're going to,
and the atmosphere should be insane because I mean you're looking. It's Monday Night Football,
final
first
season,
game of the season, final season.
Right.
If there's one fan base you know is coming out full bore, it is the Raiders.
Yeah,
I think there will be lots of alcohol consumed in the parking lot at the Oakland Alameda Coliseum. All right. Well, Kelly Kreiner, thanks for being here again, man, as always. And Chaz Osborne, thank you for everything you guys do. For our executive producer, Mark Bonilla, I am Scalco Branson, your host here on the Silver and Black today. We'll see you next week from Valley High, live 8 to 10 a.m. on CBS Sports Radio 1140. Thanks, everybody.